Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Mr. Pad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 5. Okay. All right. All right. On this third day of March 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 1, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukṣetra, page 35, text number 5. Oh, sorry. Drishtaketush Chekitanaha Kashirajash Chaviryavan Purujit Kuntibhojash Cha Shaibyash Cha Narapungavaha Drishtaketush Chekitana Kashirajas Chaviryavan Purujit Kuntibhojascha Shaibyascha Narapungavaha Drishtaketush Chekitana Kashirajas Chaviryavan Purujit Kuntibhojascha Shaibyascha Narapungavaha Drishtaketush Chekitana Kashirajas Chaviryavan Purujit Kuntibhojascha Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha. Drishtaketus Chekitana. Kashirajascha Viryavan. Purujit Kinpi Bhojascha. Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha. Dharma, do you want to try? Drishtaketus Chekitana. Kashirajascha Viryavan. Purujit Kunti Bhojascha. Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha. That's right. Drishtaketus Chekitana. Kashirajascha Viryavan. Purujit Kunti Bhojascha. Shaibhyascha Narapungava. Ladies. Drishtaketus Chekitana. Kashirajascha Viryavan. Purujit Kunti Bhojascha. Shaibhyascha Narapungava. Ami, go ahead. Drishtaketus Chekitana. Kashirajascha Viryavan. Purujit Kunti Bhojascha. Shaibhyascha Narapungava. Drishtaketus Chekitana. Kashirajascha Viryavan. Purujit Kunti Bhojascha. Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha. Okay, I'll read these names myself. Drishtaketu, Drishtaketu. Chekitana, Chekitana. Kashirajaha, Kashiraja. Cha, also. Viryavan, very powerful. Purujit, Purujit. Kunti Bhojaha, Kunti Bhoja. Cha and Shaibhyaha, Shaibhya, Sha and Narapungavaha. Hero in human society. Translation. So this is Duryodhana speaking. He's enumerating how powerful his soldiers are. Maybe no, this is on the other side, I think. There are also great heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraja, Purujit, Kunti Bhoja, and Shaibhya. Okay, going on. I'll say, you say. Yudhamanushta Vikranta. Uttamajashta Viryavan. Saubhadro Draupadeyascha. Sarva Eva Maharata. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Uh-oh. Give me a second here. Oh boy. All right. 7. Asmakam tu vishistaye Niboda dvijotama Nayika mama sainyasya Sangyartam tam bravimite. But for your information, O best of the Brahmins, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. So this is Duryodhana speaking to, who was it? Dronacharya. Right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So he's trying to pump up the courage. So he's now he listed all the other side. Now he's going to list his own side and try to make out that they're much more powerful. So I did 7, right? All right, 8. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samatinjayaha Ashvatthama Vikarnascha Saumadattis Tataivacha. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvatthama, Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta called Bodhisattva, who are always victorious in battle. Purport. Duryodhana mentions the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana. Ashvatthama is the son of Dronacharya. And Saumadatti, or Bodhisattva, is the son of the king of Balika. Karna is the half-brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya's twin sister married Dronacharya. All right, so we'll go through these quickly. Anyecha bhavakshura madarte tyakta jivitaha nana shastra baharana sarve yudna visharadaha. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Purport. As far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, and Shalya, all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die on the battle of Kurukṣetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Salakaya Chakshura Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, just to bring everyone up to speed on where we are in this Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters of a long, long book. The book has 100,000 verses. The Bhagavad Gita has 700, so you can see the size. But the Bhagavad Gita is the kind of the crown jewel of the whole Mahabharata. It's called the Mahabharata, and this is a historical work of poetry written by Vedavyas, describing this pivotal battle that took place about 5,000 years ago, in which Krishna was present, and he kind of engineered the whole thing in such a way that it would instate his beloved Pandava brothers, who were justice and morality personified, and the throne of the world. The greater Bharata was basically the world. And it had been taken over by different demoniac forces. And at this point it's being led by Duryodhana and his 99 brothers. There's a whole story that I told last time that I don't think I'll get into. But there's this, they were related. There wasn't, they were all part of the really largest Kuru dynasty. And the Pandavas were sons of demigods, like Indra was the father of Arjuna. The wind god Vaya was the father of Bhima. And Yamaraj himself, who's the judge, who judges people when they die sinfully, sends them to the other place, and the others go. And he was the father of Yudhishthira. So Yudhishthira was like the son of Dharma, very, very moral. So they were all great devotees of Krishna, and he loved them very much, and he wanted to see them instated. So he engineered this whole battle ultimately, and all of the bad guys are going to be killed, and the Pandavas will be instated. But for our purposes, the reason why this book is so famous and so beloved around the world, because it embodies the teachings of Krishna to his friend Arjuna, which will begin in the next chapter. The scene is that this is just the introduction to trying to give you an idea of the tremendous fighting force on either side. But Arjuna, he gets cold feet. He doesn't want to fight.
And Krishna is God, and he had a big army also. He was living in Dwarka, and so he was partial to the Pandavas, obviously. So he said, look, Duryodhana and Arjun, you decide. I will fight. I will not fight in the battle, although I could be on the battlefield. But the other one who doesn't get me, he can get all my armies, you see. So Duryodhana had the first choice. And he said, what am I going to do with Krishna? Just one man, you know? I'll take his armies. So his armies is thousands of elephants and horses and infantry and like that, all armed. And Arjun, he was relieved because he's, oh, that's okay, that's good, yeah. Okay, I'll just take Krishna. So what is Krishna going to do with Arjun? So he said, okay, look, I'll become your charioteer. You see, so he was driving the chariot. He was serving. The charioteer is the servant of the warrior on the chariot. So what will happen here, in a few verses, we'll learn that Arjun, so there's these, all the armies are arrayed on either side, hundreds of thousands, even millions, of infantry and elephants and horses and all ready to do battle. So they're facing each other. So Arjun wants to see, well, who's on the other side? Who am I going to want to fight? You know, who am I going to have to fight here? So he asked Krishna to take his chariot between the two armies in no man's land, you know. And he does, and suddenly Arjun will say, oh my God, there's my beloved Bhishma Dev, who acted as my grandfather when I was orphaned. He's on the other side. And my teacher, who taught me everything I know about martial arts, he's also leading the other side. Plus a whole bunch of cousins and relatives of kinds. So he said, and on his own side, of course, there were so many friends and relatives. He said, what do I want to fight this battle for? Even if I win the kingdom, it'll be soaked with the blood of all these people who I love and revere on the other side. What's the use? Let me go off to the mountains. I'll just be a beggar. I'll take sannyas, a yogi. He really wasn't suited for that, but what is he else he proposed? So up at that point, he's kind of arguing with Krishna. Krishna, he's in the role of a charioteer who's supposed to buck up the courage of the fighter, So he said, "What? You can't quit. Nobody will believe that you left the battlefield out of moral reasons. They'll call you a coward. What could be more painful for you? Because he was highly revered as a fighter." So that didn't work. Arjun says, "No." So finally, he realizes that he's not getting anywhere. So you'll see in the beginning of the next chapter, he surrenders to Krishna, not as a friend, because they had this friendly relationship all his life, but rather as a disciple, a guru-disciple relationship, which is completely different. And that's a critical point. And then beginning in the 11th verse of the next chapter, Krishna will start his spiritual instruction for Arjuna. And we'll see the purpose, so it'll be very long, and that'll be started. But this is an important kind of setting of the scene. So let's go on. So now he's talking to the Dronacharya, who's his chief military advisor, and he's trying to present it in such a way that he'll feel confident. This is all Duryodhana speaking. So what did I do? Did I do 10? We're on 10. Aprayaptam tadashmakam balam bhishma virakshitam Bharyaptam tvidam etesham balam bhima virakshitam. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Purport. Herein, an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by the less experienced general, Bhima, who was like a fig in presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima, because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general. His conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained, although it was ultimately false. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yata bhagam avastitaha bhishmameva virakshantu bhavantak sarvaevahi. All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Purport. Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhishma Dev was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man, so everyone must especially think of his protection from all sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that the other heroes not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhishma Dev. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya in the battle, because he well knew that they did not even speak a word when Arjun's wife Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while there was an attempt to force her to appear naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that these generals would now completely give it up as they had done during the gambling performances. Now there's a backstory there which I won't get into now. Tasya sanjanayan harsham kuru vridha pitamaha singhanadam vinadyochai shankam dadmau pratapavan. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. If any of you stay for the kirtan, you'll hear the conch blowing. Sometimes it's hard for them to blow, but basically, maybe I'll blow it. But it's a very traditional instrument. Purport. The grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of his grandson Duryodhana. And out of his natural compassion for him, he tried to cheer him by blowing his conch shell very loudly, befitting his position as a lion. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle. Because the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side. But still, it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection. So the conch shell is one of Krishna's weapons. And so he's blowing that conch shell, but it says actually indirectly, he's in, well, it's hopeless. Tata shankascha biryascha panavanaka gomakaha sahasayabhyabhihanyanta sashabdas tumalobhavat. Now let's just wait 1 second here. Look at that word, the second to last word, tumalo. You can see how Sanskrit is the source of all languages. Tumult, tumultuous. It comes from that Sanskrit word. Translation. After that, the conch shell, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Tatakshveta harayukte mahati syandhane stitao madhava pandavaschaiva divyashankal pradadmatuhu. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Purport. In contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishma Dev, the conch shells in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna are described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side, because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayas tu Pandu Putranam Yesham Pakshe Janardana. Victory is always with persons like the sons of Pandu, because Lord Krishna is associated with them. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there, because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shell of Vishnu, or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both friends were seated had been donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna. And this indicated that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. Okay. Now, the conch shells have names here. Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Poundram Dadnau Mahashankam Bhimakarma Vikrodaraha. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell called Poundra. Bhima is Arjuna's younger brother, and older brother, I guess. And he's known to be very powerful and a voracious eater. Purport: Lord Krishna is referred to as Rishikesha in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. The word Rishika in Sanskrit means the senses, and Isha means the Lord, so he's the master of the senses, and he's supposed to be the master of our senses. If we engage our senses in his service, then we're hooked up to Rishikesha, and we can advance in devotional service. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore the senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but he directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity. And in the case of a pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. Here on the battlefield of Kurukṣetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus Krishna's particular name of Rishikesha, the master of the senses. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva because he appeared as the son of Vasudeva. His name is Devaki Nandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashoda Nandana because he awarded his childhood pastimes to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Parthasarathi because he worked as a charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Rishikesha because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukṣetra. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for the different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vrikodara because he could eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks, such as killing the demon Hidimba. So the particular types of conch shell blown by the different personalities on the side of the Pandavas, beginning with the lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. On the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Director, nor that of the Goddess of Fortune. So they were predestined to lose the battle. And that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. Can you get the heat? Okay. All right. I think I'll just chant these myself because we're spending a lot of time on the Sanskrit. Ananda Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthiraha Nakula Sahadevascha Sangosha Manipushpakao Kasyascha Padameshwasa Shikandi Cha Maharataha Drishta Jumno Viratascha Satyakis Cha Parajitaha Drupado Draupadeyascha Sarvishar Padavipate Saubhadrascha Mahabahu Shankan Dadmu Patak Patak. So more blowing of conch shells. King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijay, and Nakula and Sahadev blew the Sugosha and Manipushpaka. The great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikandi, Drishtadyumna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others, O kings, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. Purport. Sanjaya informed King Dhritarashtra very tactfully that his unwise policy of deceiving the sons of Pandu and endeavoring to enthrone his own sons on the seat of the kingdom was not very laudable. The signs already clearly indicated that the whole Kuru dynasty would be killed in that great battle, beginning with the grandsire Bhishma down to the grandsons like Abhimanyu and others, including kings from many states of the world. All were present there and all were doomed. The whole catastrophe was due to King Dhritarashtra because he encouraged the policy followed by his sons. Sagosho Dhartarashtanam Vidyani Vidariyat Nabascha Pradabhinchaiva Tumulo Vyanunariyan. Another tumulo, more tumultuous. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Purport. When Bhishma and the others on the side of Duryodhana blew their respective conch shells, there was no heartbreaking on the part of the Pandavas. Such occurrences are not mentioned, but in this particular verse it is mentioned that the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered by the sounds vibrated by the Pandavas' party. This is due to the Pandavas and their confidence in Lord Krishna. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. All right, so we'll go a couple more and then some nice substantive purports here. Ata vyavastitan drishta dhartarashtan kapidvajaha pravitte shastra sampate dhanu urjamya pandavaha vishikesham tada vakyam idamaha mahipate. At that time, Arjun, the son of Pandu, seated on the chariot bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn on the military array, Arjun then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Purport. The battle was just about to begin. It is understood from the above statement that the sons of Dhritarashtra were more or less disheartened by the unexpected arrangement of military force by the Pandavas, who were guided by the direct instructions of Lord Krishna on the battlefield. The emblem of Hanuman on the flag of Arjun is another sign of victory, because Hanuman cooperated with Lord Ram in the battle between Rama and Ravana, and Lord Ram emerged victorious. Now both Ram and Hanuman were present on the chariot of Arjun to help him. Lord Krishna is Ram himself, and wherever Lord Ram is, his eternal servitor Hanuman and his eternal consort Sita, the goddess of fortune, are present. Therefore Arjuna had no cause to fear any enemies whatsoever. And above all, the Lord of the senses, Lord Krishna, was personally present to give him direction. Thus all good counsel was available to Arjuna in the matter of executing the battle. In such auspicious conditions, arranged by the Lord for his eternal devotee, lay the signs of assured victory. So now, Arjuna will ask to get the view of the other side between the two parties. Now, when I read this, I may do some little editing, on the fly. So if it doesn't exactly comport with what you have on the page. Arjuna vacha senayorabhayam madhye vatam stapayamechata yavadetan niriksheham yodhu kaman avastitan karmaya sahayodhabhyam asmin varnasamudjame. Arjuna said to Krishna, O infallible one, please draw my chariots between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Purport. Although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, he was engaged in the service of his friend. He never fails in his affection for his devotees, and thus he is addressed herein as infallible. As charioteer, he had to carry out the orders of Arjuna, and since he did not hesitate to do so, he is addressed as infallible. Although he had accepted the position of a charioteer for his devotee, his supreme position was not challenged. In all circumstances, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishikesh, the Lord of the total senses. The relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. He takes greater pleasure in his pure devotees assuming the advantageous position of ordering him than he does in being the giver of orders. Since he is master, everyone is under his orders, and no one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is the infallible master in all circumstances. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna had no desire to fight with his cousins and brothers, but he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of Duryodhana, who was never agreeable to any peaceful negotiation. Therefore, Arjuna was very anxious to see who the leading persons present on the battlefield were. Although there was no question of a peacemaking endeavor on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again, and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war. Yotyamanam aviksheham yaetetra samagataha dhartarashtrasya durbudher yuddhe priyachikirshvaha. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Purport: it was an open secret that Duryodhana wanted to usurp the kingdom of the Pandavas by evil plans, in collaboration with his father, Dhritarashtra. Therefore, all persons who had joined the side of Duryodhana must have been birds of the same feather. Arjuna wanted to see them on the battlefield before the fight was begun, just to learn who they were. But he had no intention of proposing peace negotiations with them. It was also a fact that he wanted to see them to make an estimate of the strength which he had to face, although he was quite confident of victory because Krishna was sitting by his side. Sanjaya vacha eva mukto rishikesha gudakeshena bharata senayorabayor madhye stapayit varatotamam. Sanjay said, so now he's speaking to Dhritarashtra back in Indraprastha. O descendant of Bharat, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot, not in the midst of the armies, but between the two armies. Purport: in this verse, Arjuna is referred to as Gurukṣetra. Guraka means sleep, and one who conquers sleep is called Guraka Isha or Gurukṣetra. Sleep also means ignorance. So Arjuna conquered both sleep and ignorance because of his friendship with Krishna. As a great devotee of Krishna, he could not forget Krishna even for a moment, because that is the nature of a devotee. Either in waking or in sleep, a devotee of the Lord can never be free from thinking of Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Thus, a devotee of Krishna can conquer both sleep and ignorance simply by thinking of Krishna constantly. This is called Krishna consciousness, or samadhi. As Rishikesha, or the director of the senses and mind of every living entity, Krishna could understand Arjuna's purpose in placing the chariot in the midst of the armies. Thus he did so and spoke as follows. Okay. Bhishma Drona Pramakata Sarvesham Shamahi Jitam Uvacha Partha Prashaitan Samavetan Kuruniti. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, "Just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here." Purport: as the supersoul of all living entities, Lord Krishna could understand what was going on in the mind of Arjuna. The use of the word Rishikesh in this connection indicates that he knew everything, and the word Partha, meaning the son of Prita or Kunti, is also similarly significant in reference to Arjuna. As a friend, Krishna wanted to inform Arjuna that because Arjuna was the son of Prita, the sister of his own father Vasudeva, he had agreed to be the charioteer of Arjuna. Now, what did Krishna mean when he told Arjuna, "Behold the Kurus"? Did Arjuna want to stop there and not fight? Krishna never expected such things from the son of his aunt Prita. The mind of Arjuna was thus predicted by the Lord in friendly joking. All right, we'll try to finish a few more. Tatra pashyat stitan partha pitrin ata pitamahan acharyan matulan bratrin putran pautran saking sata swashadan sudidaschaiva senayorabayorapi. Now he sees all his friends, relatives, and he's disturbed. There Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers. Purport: on the battlefield, Arjuna can see all kinds of relatives. He could see persons like, now this is we want to maybe add something here. He's looking now at the other army, and he's seeing there a person like Bhurishrava, who were his father's contemporaries, grandfathers Bhishma and Somadatta, teachers like Dronacharya and Kripacharya, maternal uncles like Shalya and Shakuni, brothers like Duryodhana, sons like Lakshmana, friends like Ashwatthama, well-wishers like Kritavarma, etc. He could see also the army, and as well he could see all kinds of friends and relatives in his own army. So the whole point is that he's seeing on both sides those who he doesn't want to see die, what to speak of having be party to them being killed, you see? So there's all of these lists here, all of these Somadatta, etc., they're all on the other side. And as well, he could see his own side, of course, was filled with friends and relatives. So suddenly, he gets cold feet. This is what the whole point of this chapter is about. I'm just going to read the English. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. This is not the normal reaction of a great warrior at the moment of imminent battle. But because they're his friends and relatives, his heart is touched. Purport. Any man who has genuine devotion to the Lord has all the good qualities which are found in godly persons or in the demigods, whereas the non-devotee, however advanced he may be in material qualifications by education and culture, lacks in godly qualities. As such, Arjuna, just after seeing his kinsmen, friends, and relatives on the battlefield, was at once overwhelmed by compassion for them who had so decided to fight among themselves. As far as his soldiers were concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning, but he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposite party, foreseeing their imminent death. And while he was so thinking, the limbs of his body began to quiver, and his mouth became dry. He was more or less astonished to see their fighting spirit. Practically the whole community, all blood relatives of Arjuna, had come to fight with him. This overwhelmed the kind devotee like Arjuna. Although it is not mentioned here, still one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's bodily limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness, but to his soft-heartedness, a characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord. It is said, therefore, Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati kinchana sarvaya gunais tatta samasate suraha harava bhakta sukato mahanguna manonatena tadidhavato mahi. One who has unflinching devotion for the personality of Godhead has all the good qualities of the demigods. But one who is not a devotee of the Lord has only material qualifications that are of little value. This is because he is hovering on the mental plane and is certain to be attracted by the glaring material energy. Bhagavatam 5:18-12. So, we'll finish this chapter probably tomorrow, or at least a good part of it. And Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So one thing that's important to realize here, that the whole purpose of this introductory part is to explain how the conversation is about to take place. Arjuna is actually covered by Maya, so that Krishna can speak this Bhagavad Gita and take him out of Maya. So Arjuna is actually our representative. He's our representative. We are also on a battlefield, kind of, in this material world. And that battle is, generally we're in ignorance, especially in this age. The Vedas explain that just like seasons go, we're almost through with winter now, thank God, and we're going to come on spring and then summer and fall, and we all know that. So there's also larger seasons. There's different yugas. Yugas means ages. The Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, and then it begins again with Satya. So the Satya Yuga Satya means truth, and it's a time when people lived a lot longer, much simpler, and Brahminical culture was very, very dominant, meaning that people were peaceful, they were friendly to each other, they lived in harmony with nature. it was the age of goodness, and they lived much longer, up to 100,000 years. Treta Yuga, things started to get a little more troubling, and people lived less long. And during the time of Satya Yuga, people became realized just by meditation, which Krishna touches on in the 6th chapter. Treta Yuga, things became a little more confused, but it was still very pious. People were performing elaborate sacrifices, and in that way advancing. And the Dwapara Yuga, and people in Treta Yuga lived 10,000 years old. Then the Dwapara Yuga, which ended about 5,000 years ago, people lived up to 1,000 years, and there was elaborate deity worship. We have some deity worship here, you'll see if you stay for the arati, you know. But there is much more elaborate. They would perform huge sacrifices and, you know, and ceremonies. And here we have, you know, beautiful dressing, but we really can't afford to have real jewels on all the deities, you know. But we have, it's very beautiful. But there, in Treta Yuga, in Dwapara Yuga, everything was, you know, the real gold and jewels and everything, you know. And then there's the Kali Yuga. Now, Kali means quarrel. So this is the age of quarrel, you know, within the family and outside, and there's always some disagreement. And it's said about this age, Prayanapaya sabya kalavasmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya yupadvita. Most people, they don't live very long, maximum 100 years. Maximum. You know, it's very rare to find some of these. So 100 years they live, and the alpayasak means relatively short duration of life. Manda, in the matter of self-realization and God-realization and spiritual advancement, which is really the purpose of life, especially human life, the present age, people are mostly not interested. Like you could go down to the bar here, especially on the weekend, and you'll find a much bigger crowd. Here we have some, you know, a nice small crowd of sincere souls, but there's, I think, double figures. Do we have 10 people? Anyway, but it's just not, it's not, you know, millions of people are out there, they're not thinking about the basic questions that we all have to ask as human beings. Who are we really? Why are we suffering? Why do we have to die? Is there any way of, you know, and then most people don't even know anymore, you know, that you don't die, that is the transmigration of the soul, the law of karma, basic principle. So there's a lot of ignorance. And there's always fighting within the family and within the community and the nations. And, you know, the world is about to blow up. So that's the Kali Yuga. And in this age, this Bhagavad Gita is very important because it really gives the ABCs, the essential basics of spiritual life, beginning with the fact that we're all souls, that we're spirit, not matter, that we're different from the body. We're not the body. That's the first thing you learn in ISKCON. You're not the body, Prabhu. I made a little poem. You know, I'm sorry, you're going to have to. Every body dies. That's it, right? We're all in a body. We're going to die. Everybody dies. Nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body. You're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's the ISKCON movement in a nutshell. So the first chapter, the second chapter is where we begin. The first chapter of instruction, he will begin with this basic principle that, you know, everyone on this battlefield is going to die, Arjuna, except you Pandavas and a few others. But ultimately, no one dies. There's several verses in the second chapter, and he's describing the existence of the soul separate from. So that should, if we really believe that, you know, we can see how it should change all of our calculations of what's important in life, because along with the fact that we're not going to die, we have a spiritual identity separate from this bodily identification. This morning I was trying to do my morning walk, but the wind was so powerful I had to deviate. Instead of going north on Cass, and there was a north wind blowing really strong. I said, all right, I think I'll go across on Garnet and try to avoid the wind. But I looked up at the trees, you know, and you could see the trees. They were all, it was obvious the wind was blowing very powerfully up there, all from the north to the south. You know, you can see these trees. And these trees are as much living entities as we are. That means there's living, you know, wherever you see consciousness evident, the little bugs or, you know, the grass, I would say there's so much astroturf, too. But they're not alive. But the grass and whatever else is trying to grow. Every single blade of grass is another living entity. They're in there, just like us. Now, how did that living entity get into that body? And we're in this nice human body. That's also answered in the Shastra. By what we do, by the consciousness we cultivate, that will take us into the next body. We're making our next body right now. So the question is, what can we do at this time, and how can we do it to get the best next body? A body that will not die, a spiritual body. That's again associated with Krishna in the spiritual world. And we can go, that famous phrase of Prabhupada's that's like so inspiring. Back home, back to Godhead. We have that home, where not only can no one kick you out, but you don't want to leave. It's the perfect place. Satchit Ananda, eternal life, full of bliss, full of knowledge. Wouldn't that be nice? So we hear about that, and he said, well, it sounds like a pipe dream. But wait, here's all of these great acharyas, and beginning with Srila Prabhupada, who showed us by their lives, that living in a saintly manner, and they all believed in this Shastra. They all lived their lives according to the Shastra. So we're going to just, on the basis of our little material knowledge, say, nah, doesn't sound like very interesting. That's foolish. We should investigate it. And that's why Prabhupada was so assiduous in writing these books, and I had the greatest good fortune of participating to some degree in all of them. And the basic principle is that the human life is the invaluable gift. Every soul eventually becomes a human being, but you see the human beings are fairly limited. 8 billion? I mean, there's probably 8 billion... in a baseball field, with all the grass there, there's 8 billion blades of grass. So we're in a big minority. It's rare, but it's a very invaluable form of life. I'll give you a little Sanskrit, one of my favorite verses. Labnva sudurlamamidam bahusambhavante manushyam artadamanityamapi hadhira turnam yateta nabateda namityava nikshayasaya vishaya kalu sarvatakshyat. Oh, human being, you have attained a very rare human form of life. Sudurlabhamidam bahusam, after many, many births, coming up through the species, now we're human beings. And what's so great about it? Manusham artadam anityam apir. Artadam means it can give the greatest value. You can attain the greatest, most valuable thing, which is liberation from birth and death, return back to Godhead, reawakening our eternal relationship with God, and living an eternal life full of bliss and knowledge. That's the great goal that no one else can even dream about. So, but this is real. So, Manusham Archadam, but like all other forms, anityam, it's not eternal, it's temporary. You see, the body itself is temporary. So one has to be dhira, very important word. It means very sober-minded and consider this great gift we've been given, and now let's be determined to use it properly. And then he joins here, turnam yateta, without delay, where you can get confused and drawn off into a million things. Turnam yateta, strive for what? As long as you're still alive, anumityayavat, nikshayasaya, key word in the verse. Shreyas is like your ultimate good. We all have experience, just like every parent knows their kid grows up, and the last thing they want to do is go to school. They just want to play all day with their friends, right? But the mother said, no, you have to go to school. You got to go to school. Because what will happen if you don't get educated? Then you really suffer all your life. You won't be able to read, But all the kid knows is the immediate. There's shreyas and preyas. Preyas is the immediate fun, the pleasure that they can always have. But, oh my God. But Shreyas is the ultimate good. So we can strive that, and this whole movement is for teaching us what that is and how to attain it. So thank you very much for coming. You're all invited again tomorrow. As you can see, there's no fee.